Hello, and today we were playing Pervader. This is my first video of it. It's been around for a while now, about 3 years. I don't know if it came out in 2020 or 2021, but it's been out for a long time. It's a game that I enjoy a lot. It's a medieval game with magic in it, which is very popular with very visual novels. So, go ahead and start now. A ray of light fell upon my face, knocking upon my eyelids to invite a new day. I quickly sailed away from the light. Is it time to wake up already? Everything is fairly quiet. No ruffling sounds, no commotion. Maybe no one else has woken up yet. Then I could lay for a while longer. Ah, yes. If I'm needed, Mother will barge in and wake me, and likely talk my ear off for oversleeping. Or maybe Father will knock at the window and give me the first task of the day. Sometimes my brothers will conspire against me and find a rude way to awaken me. I'm fine with that if I could just stay like this for a little while longer. Alas, reality was setting in. I sighed and turned to sink my face in the rags of my makeshift pillow. Neither mother nor father nor brother could wake me, for I was in a foreign land, far, far away from home. The ship had taken me northeast across the sea to this country of Orthane and this town of Chariot. Presently, I sat up and looked around me. The sack. A small rickety door stood ajar at the other end. It was gently swaying on its failing hinges. The motion played with the sun's rays, creating an annoying ambience through the narrowing and widening shaft of light. There was a tiny piece, about a wagon's length and breadth. The loose assembly of weathered planks that made up the walls didn't seem to offer much shelter, but it worked well enough. Whoever made it their home before me had thought to fit tarps around the outside, a small mercy I had come to appreciate the one time it rained a couple of weeks back. Other sets weren't as fortunate. I wanted to find better lodging by the end of summer and better work to pay for it. The thought was a bit troubling. Back home, we did not experience harsh, cold seasons. This region was much closer to the northern lands of Everwinter, and they say Orthane has dark and windy autumns, so it was an open question whether the Santee could keep the wind at bay. Yeah. Maybe I should talk to him about fitting some improvements. Small as it may be, two of us were hosted in here. My sack mate across from me, Jonah, was now steering in his bunk. The space is so narrow I could reach out and touch him from where I lay. He turned over to face me, his eyes narrowly opened. "Morning, lad." "Good morning, Jonah." His voice was hoarse with age and morning grogginess. He smacked his old lips a couple times. "Where are you staring?" "Oh, sorry. Sleep still bothering you?" "Not as much anymore. I've gotten used to it." Joe turned over again to stretch on his back, yawning. Although he was getting on in age, he was still springy and tough. I plain kindly so. He was an adult to spend most of his waking moments there to save up money for a trip. His daughter lives in a town far out east, and she's waiting for him to visit. Once he leaves, he won't be coming back. He said he would stay with her. 4 years ago, he was a stranger to this place as I was when I arrived. He saw that I was a stranger too. I think that's why he started looking after me. We're expecting a big ship today. One of those syndicate charters. Haven't seen them in a while. He rolled out of bed and went to put on his on his occasions. Might be working there through midnight, so don't wait up for me. While he was getting ready for the day, I had something else I needed to attend to. I leaned in and reached for the narrow space between the bed and wall to pull out the leather pouch. Inside of it was a notebook, and I would read through it again. Jonah looked at me curiously. "You've been doing that every morning since you started working." "I need to do a little every day." "A little of what?" He leaned in gently to peek at the pages of the notebook. He had seen me with it plenty of times, but he never asked me about it before. "I'm trying to get better at reading and writing." "Oh." He went wide-eyed and nodded in understanding. "I thought you went to school." "I did for a little while. Alan asked me to get better, though." "You working with books now? Is that what the boss fellow of yours be telling you?" "He hasn't said exactly. I think he wants me to help out with the paperwork." "I see. I know you're a smart fella, Ramus. I can see you working in a place like that until you're old. God knows I'd be doing that if I could." "He must be paying you well." "Not really, it's okay. If he didn't ask me to work for him when he did, I probably would have ended up at the docks with you. Only reason I didn't is because there weren't any work offers now, though." Jordan shook his head in defiance. "Laddie, don't throw it away just yet. It ain't often that a farmer's boy like yourself gets to work for a fancy man like that. Maybe it ain't great now. Maybe you learn something useful, something that could help you out in the future. I can tell you there's nothing great about being a dock worker. You slave an entire life away, barely get enough corn to settle down by the time your bones turn brittle. Barely enough time and money to see the ones you love. Ain't gonna touch that job, you hear? I don't know if it's a good place to work, but I know it ain't this bell's bottom. So if you have to get better at weeding, you do that. Keep at it. I wish I could help you, but was never much for weeding either. All I can do is let you practice in peace." "Okay, change it, Zona." He laughed, pushed the door open, let it swing back and forth as he walked away. My attention shifted back to the notebook. I would look through it whenever I could. There were pages and pages of various notes, copied text, exercises, and rhymes. Some of my scribbled drawings were in it as well. Reading and writing were difficult. Father didn't earn enough to put us through more than a few years of school. My brothers and I were not expected to lead bookish lives. We were simple folk, and did have to pick up a good manner of speaking from days of listening to preachers in the market square. Some of them had funny ways of expressing themselves. Occasional inflections stuck in my mind, and I would remember phrases. A virtuous man kept truth between words and deeds. Many of those sayings had been scrawled down already. Whenever I would remember one, it would be added with the others. Seeing the words on paper and hearing them recounted in my mind helped to strengthen my reading ability. A couple of pages should be enough. The writing exercises would come later when I would be at a desk. After a few minutes, I was confident in my review and put the notebook back in its leather. I shuffled out of bed and quickly put on my salt-stained boots. The leather strap of the bag was beginning to wear out, so I slung it over my shoulder just the same. Ellen would want to inspect my notes. The worker camp was just beginning to stir. Men of different ages and sizes would soon be roaming about, attending to their morning deeds. A man coughed as he clanked a spoon against a kettle, the one at the hearth behind the camp office. Outside the gate, a wagon was being drawn, its wheels snapping twigs and crushing leaves that had started to litter the ground. Beyond the wagon came the nagging call of a housewife searching for her husband or son. Walking ahead, I heard a slight crackling noise coming from nearby. It was a campfire between a pair of sets along the path. A few men were gathered around it, chuckling, sighing, and whispering, so as not to wake those who wanted more rest. I spotted Jonah among them. A bell would ring later on to make sure no one overslept. Half of us would be off before we could even hear it. I passed a few other sacks and made my way to the scuttlebutt. There would always be enough water in it for everyone's morning use. One person would be on duty to fill up the scuttlebutt every morning and afternoon. Wasted water would earn you scowls. I grabbed one of the empty buckets and filled it about halfway, then placed it on the counter to the side. With cupped hands, I leaned in to grab a drink. The water is too warm to be pleasant, but it deals with the thirst. Now to clean up a little. My palms sank and resurfaced, splashing my water to wash away the grinds of sleep. I set aside my leather bag on the counter and pulled off my shirt, draping it over the bag. On the counter lay several bars of Barrel-Lash soap, some of which were more or less used up. I grabbed one of the smaller ones, dampened it, and started working it over my body. Even though the days and nights are not as hot as those back home, I still sweat a lot. Father will always say that to make yourself proper, you had to wash your face, your armpits, and your nether regions. That last one I decided not to honor right now. The soap had a fine, creamy texture to it, and I'm impressed and lightly sharp, minty odor. It washes away easily, yet the freshness sticks to you long into the evening. Back when we lived on the farm, we used to make our own soap just like this. All the neighboring families did the same. In town, though, soap makers have a handle on that. Balsamics were much more fragrant, but very expensive. You could always tell the weight of someone's purse by the smell. I flexed my arm and stretched, checking my body as I was washing up. When I was younger, Mother would often make sweet rolls for me, my brothers and friends, and that had chunked me up a little. I kept some of my roundness from before, tempered with a bare muscle from all the hefty manual labor I had done since I came here. Felines were common around these parts, though none were like me. Cats and black leopards abound, but there was a great chance I was the only cougar in town. Cheering had made me exotic. I felt confident in my body. Wish I had someone to share it with. Since coming here, I hadn't met a man who would take me up on that. Working and looking for work had kept me busy. Now that things are settling down, maybe I should take a gander. There was a brothel in town, and I even heard there were working men. Part of the reason why I wanted to leave home was because of my sexual inclinations. Many provinces have laws against bedding another man, but not here. Our thing, as a country, care little about things like that. To these people, profit is paramount. The Lord's rise and fall based on their ability to stimulate the flow of corn in brothels ran like rivers. Satisfied with my grooming, I shook off the water from my fur and put my shirt back on, took my bag and headed for the exit. Stepping outside the gate, I saw the notice board where people would occasionally place work offers. Where once I would study it obsessively, now I only glance it over out of habit. This way leads straight into the market, which used to be my hunting ground. I arrived in this town 5 months ago. Half of the money I saved up had gone into the trip. The other half I lost foolishly by staying at the inn. Why couldn't someone have told me about the working camp sooner? Although my accent wasn't thick, it was obvious to everyone that I was not from the region. The few businesses that operated here would rather hire locals than someone like me. Still, I could usually find an errand or two, enough to earn my bread. Over time, I had become more familiar with the townspeople and felt like I was starting to be accepted. The servicers in the market are a fairly tight-knit community. Most of them have tiny stalls selling whatever they grow or make themselves. Ironworks, herbs, fruits, and vegetables, things of straw and hemp. Liquor was very popular. None of these goods came from the sales of this port town. I had hoped I would find work at the bakery, but alas it was a impenetrable family business just like the one I left behind. The customers around the market were dockers or crew taking leave from the ships moored in port. Scholars, traders, traveling entertainers, and adventurers and their odd noble would occasionally stop by to taste of the local produce. Although there was much traffic at sea, the cargoes coming in and out were destined for other places in and out of the region. It was a hub of traffic, not the biggest town, but it was growing. As I walked further along, I could spot one of the wharves at the dock where a boat was either just moving or departing. I'd often tried to enlist with one of the ships. Although these crews had men from all around the world and thus wouldn't care about where your accent placed you, there I had even less of a chance. There were men with sea experience who would start the gangways for opportunities, men much more valuable than me in that regard. It was no secret that salted dogs were 10 times more valuable than any lad still wet behind the ears if I had only come here as a seaman rather than a passenger. That didn't matter anymore. Now I have a reliable job. I crossed through the market saying good morning to the kind people. It was still fairly early, so most hadn't even set up their stalls yet. The ironmonger was always the first one to open up. His services were sought after by seamen coming in to ask for repairs or spare parts, partly because he was a carpenter also. He was a hard man. I didn't know him well, but he always nodded hello my way when I would see him at the earliest hour. Others were loading up their crates with produce. Most were too busy to even notice me passing. Finally, I came upon the antique shop. I approached the door and glanced through the frosted glass before entering. Stepping inside, my lungs and nose were impressed with an odd, old, and pleasant quality to the air. It carried the sensation of history in bottle. It would always hit me when I entered, but fade away as I got accustomed to it. Sometimes there would be burning incense at the entrance to welcome customers, but the day lacked any fancy. It meant Alan was expecting a slow day, or he just hadn't gotten around to it yet. Book sales, counters, cases, and vitrines decorated with all sorts of junk, and treasures were arranged along the walls in encounter islands. Walked over to the desk across the room, my ears picking up the shuffling sounds beyond it. Leaning over the desk, I spotted Alan in the closet office to the side. He was looking through some papers and hadn't noticed me yet. I cleared my throat to get his attention. "Oh, wait, miss. Good morning, Alan." "Good morning." Alan was a very gentle person most of the time. If I had to guess, I placed him around my father's age. His tenor of speech and mannerisms tell of a bookish man, yet he carries himself with neighborly quaintness. 1 month ago, he approached me and asked if I wanted to work for him. There was no need to consider the offer. Immediately, I accepted. Before then, a couple of people in the market had hired me to deliver some goods across town, and I visited Alan once. Everything was delivered on time, and he always seemed pleased. Was that enough to convince him I'm worth hiring? At the time, I didn't even know what he was about. I had overheard people gossiping about the antique shop and Alan, but I didn't pay it much attention at the time. I assumed it wasn't a place I could find work. But when he asked me, I was caught off guard. As it turns out, the job isn't anything special, at least as far as I'm concerned. Just some housekeeping, dusting off old things, hauling stuff, and helping out in any way I can. Simple tasks are a decent opportunity for me. He says he wants me to do more work, though, things that have more to do with the business. That's why I've been trying to improve my reading and writing. I'm eager to learn more from him. He is willing to teach. Alan himself is very smart and knowledgeable to understand all these old things. He deals with the clients, although there aren't many of them. Still don't quite understand why people seek out these kinds of antiques. He walked out of the enclosed space with papers in hand and stood by the desk. You came in early. Did you sleep well? Well enough. I've been sleeping better lately. Oh, you had trouble nights before? Sleeping was difficult when I first arrived. Different land, different beds. Even the air tastes different. I think I've gotten used to it now. That's good. I've been here for a few years now myself. It was hard on me too. The air here is much heavier and dirtier. Oh, how I miss the mountain breeze up north, the crisp morning chill, the flightless sky, the softness of clouds. Every day felt like a wonder. Now, every day I kick myself for leaving. How about you? Which wind blew you into my sock? I'm not sure. He chuckles slightly. I'm asking where you're from, Weymouth. Oh, orderly. He leans back and looks at me with a hint of pleased astonishment. Really? I hadn't met a couple of Ordains before, and their accents were much thicker. The place I'm from is closer to the mainland coast. We have a lot of foreigners. I've never really thought about it, but I guess that would make us sound more like mainlanders. You probably met Ordains from deeper in the country. Their dialects are much more distinct. Did they tell you which region they were from? I don't quite remember. It was a long time ago. You're the first person from Ordany I've met in years. Huh? I would have thought there would be many Ordains traveling this way. Perhaps many have, just not into the shop. My concern is usually limited to this humble establishment. I don't often make it my business to check the comings and goings of people around these parts. Back home, I heard a lot of stories about people leaving the country for the mainland, but I haven't met any other Ordains here either. Well, it's not a place I would settle down willingly, but I would love to visit Orderly someday. I heard the countryside is beautiful, and I know the wine is exquisite. You like Ordain wine? Of course, I have a couple of Sawai's half bottles stored away for special occasions. Vintage 88. Ellen leans in and cups a hand beside his mouth, speaking in a playfully covert manner. Between you and me, those two bottles are worth more to me than anything else in here. He smiles and chuckles lightly while straightening out his papers. All right, well, we have a lot of work to do today. I'll need you to stay overnight. How come? Ellen's expression turns stoic as she leans back. We were receiving a large shipment later today, coming in by boat. I received a delivery notice shortly before you came in. A shipment from whom? The Silver Watch. I sense a foreboding hint in Alan's voice, but also excitement. This ship is important. The Silver Watch. They are the soldiers of the Inquisition, those who set themselves as defenders of the innocent against pervaders of their magic. Under their verso, no unlawful use of magic will be tolerated. They must be good at their jobs because I have never seen any magic. I had never known a perverter either. They were said to be dangerous in hiding. You would hear tales of glorious battles between watchmen and pervaders, yet it all felt so foreign to me, like a story from a distant place in time. Inquisitors will often come and preach in the town about the evil of pervaders or twisted magic that kill and burn innocents. Those discourses always seemed so heated, warning people of awful dangers. Nobody I knew had ever come face to face with anything of the sort. At first it made me fearful, but they would drone on and on for so long and so often that I had begun to tune it out. What is the Silver Watch sending to Alan? Why do they need his help? Alan lowers his head and smiles to himself. He walks the desk idly and clears his throat. So, how goes your writing and reading? Good, well, better to say. I ask because I'm going to need your help cataloging the shipment. Oh, don't worry yourself. We'll be working together. All you have to do is write down what I tell you while I go through the items. The notes are for my own archives. It doesn't have to be done perfectly. I will view everything afterwards, but I appreciate it if you were careful. Okay, you can count on me. Alan stared up at me, studying me. Do you know why I hired you, Weymouth? He asked the question softly, but I am unsure if it was meant as a reminder or a genuine inquiry. Alan has always been reasonable and kind, so I discard any apprehension. You needed someone to help with housekeeping? No. Well, yes, of course, housekeeping is needed too. More importantly, I judge that you have what I need in an assistant. You're diligent. That's what everyone in town says. It's true as far as I've seen. And while you have been with me, I have also learned that you are cautious and curious. I just clean and move things, because cleaning and moving need to be done, among other things. A scholar cannot study without first dusting off his tomes. More interesting avenues will soon be open to you if you're ready for them. What do you mean? He looks down and away for a moment, his eyes considering the moment carefully. Then he turns towards me and carries his words with probing eyes. You've been with me for a month now. What do you think? Do you like working here? It's been good. I'm very thankful. What about your stipend? I don't pay you as much as a dock worker. Their jaws, they strained themselves more. He gave a conciliatory nod. You're young. You look strong enough. You could have worked at the docks instead, earned better coin. Why didn't you? I couldn't find work with them. About a week after I started working for Allen, there was a call for more dock hands posted at the worker camp notice board. I remember thinking it over. If I was to quit working for him and do that instead, I'd have Jonah there with me too. But Jonah said I shouldn't quit yet. He'd probably be mad with me if I did. Was the notice still there? I hadn't paid it any attention. If you have the opportunity, will you go work at the docks instead? This is what he was getting at. Is he testing my loyalty, my honesty? Is there some hidden purpose to this, spurred on by the news of the shipment? Does he want to let me go? No. He said he needs my help with the shipment. Then what do I really want? I guess I just want to find my place in the world. That's why I left home, left mother and father and little brother behind. My big brothers before me had also deported off to different corners of the country. The moment was crystallized in my mind when I fell into the adventurous mood. It was all because of a water globe. My father told me the story of how one day a man came to our bakery to purchase cake bread while I was away doing chores. The man tasted it and said it was very delicious. He enjoyed it so much that he finished eating it then and there. By the end, he was licking his fingers. Father was praised by the man, who said it was the best cake bread he had ever eaten. He liked it so much that he wanted to do more than pay. And so his appreciation, he gave Father a water globe. Father gave the thing to me, and I was completely mesmerized by it. Never would I have thought that such baubles could captivate me, but once I held it in my hands, I was in another world. It was so pretty. The encapsulated scene was of a boat near a coast, and on that coast sat a pyramid covered in glittering gold. I would play with it all the time, swaying it and flipping it to make the little flakes inside it dance. At night, I would place it on the soft next to my bed. The thing carried me into sleep. I would drift off, wishing I could wake up in the world of that globe. That tiny little thing inspired so much wonder, so many powerful emotions within me. Unfortunately, the globe didn't survive long. My little brother played with it a week after Father gave it to me, slipped it and fell, smashing against the ground and broke into tiny, unsalvageable pieces. It was the most upsetting thing that had ever happened to me until then. I figured that would happen. Little brother would just come into this room and play with it and just break it. Despite that mishap, the inspiration I had gained from it stuck with me and grew stronger. It made me bold. So bold that it spurred me to travel overseas. Of course, when I got here, my dreams were somewhat shattered. Everything is a greater place, and people don't seem quite as happy. Reality hit me like a brick. A man has to earn a coin to feed himself, and I quickly put away all those adventurous dreams. Despite all that, things aren't going too terribly. Working for Alan seems pretty interesting. There may be a future here. I've certainly seen lots of things around his thoughts that could be called treasures. Maybe this is a glitter that I was so desperate to find. It would be a disappointment to my younger self, but I'm not so young anymore. Life's never going to be that wondrous. Holding on to a childish dream like that seems foolish and wasteful. My thoughts went to my little brother. Will he have silly dreams like mine? Will he end up far away from home like all of us? My heart pulls back to our home, back in Ordney. I wanted to see my brother and warn him not to be like me. Warn him away from whiskey decisions like those which had almost trapped me. Then I recalled Father. I felt his presence. He like he was watching over me from across the sea. He worried. How worried would he be? How worried would Mother and little brother be? They must know I'm fine. I want to see them again, but now is not the time. Those childish dreams may never come to fruition, but have taken on a new dream that I'm making something of myself out here. My future is ahead of me. Is it with Alan? Is it at the docks? Is it with one of the ships? The only thing I know for sure is that I'm not waiting for me to. Is that it's not waiting for me back home. Oh, my senses returned to me. I realized that Alan stared at me. I must have been lost in thought for a bit too long. Would I work at the docks instead? I still don't have a good answer for him. Sorry, That's alright. I'm sorry if I made you worry. Let me explain. You're a bright young man, and the entire world is open to you. For you, these are the years which will define the rest of your life. I can see it in your eyes that you understand. It is good to be concerned for your future. Perhaps you had tough lately. Sometimes you have to push through hardships until the good opportunities show up. This job is one of those good opportunities. I want to convince you of that. Yet at the same time, I'm not sure where your heart is. Here's the deal. I'd like you to become my assistant, not just a handyman. That means you will have to help me with research. I've urged you to improve your writing and reading because moving forward, you will need to do a lot of studying. Do not worry, there's time. I'm patient and will help you. Studying what? Ancient lore. Have you ever heard of Nagantus? I shook my head. It's a lost civilization from 1,000 years ago, rooted in the north. In the past few decades, scholars have taken a keen interest in their relics. Many ruins are being discovered and were discovered due to recent archaeological innovations. These places are rich in old treasures, things that have special, elusive qualities to them. My job is that of the unraveler, who studies these objects and brings out their secrets. Okay, but I don't quite understand. Secrets? It sounds very vague. Yes, I am being vague, aren't I? Alan sighs and glances away for a moment. Alright, tell me, Raymond, so far, does the job I described sound appealing to you? I don't know, maybe. Working at a bakery or at the docks is fine to earn a coin, but there must be more I can do, not just manual labor. This ancient world business sounds interesting, but I don't understand. Alan, is there something you're not telling me? I want to say yes. Alan sits in his seat uncomfortably. The pause lingers a bit too long, making me unsure if I should say anything. Now I have one more important thing to tell you. This is why I've been asking you to consider. It's wonderful that I've managed to tempt you. Yet there are implications to this line of work which may not sit well with you. There's more to what I do here than just putting a price on old things. What is it? Alan sternly stares at me like I had never seen him do. He leans in to rest his elbows on the desk and steeples his hands. Ramus, I am a pervader. My mind went blank for a moment. A pervader, a word of magic, those people whom the Inquisition demonized. Am I supposed to have a strong reaction to that? To say I don't believe it or to sow fear or excitement? I do believe it. I think I am afraid and excited and a dozen other things, but all that cancels itself out and numbs me. His expression is almost flat, yet betrays a shred of anticipation. Why? Why am I a pervader? No, I mean, why are you telling me this? Why now? It's because of the work we will be doing here. You see, this little salt I have here is more than meets the eye, although most of the items we have in here are just old ornaments. A few of them have very special properties, things infused with magic, enchantments. They are tools like a hammer or a pump, but powered by magic. Such items can be used to do many things. They're quite useful and prevalent in the north, however, enchantments are banned in the south throughout the domain. Inquisition laws. Do you make enchantments? I can, but that is not what I do here. Have you ever seen an enchantment? No, I've never seen any kind of magic or anything like that. Alan opens one of the desk drawers and pulls out a shaft of wood about a foot long, narrow as a finger at one end, tapering at the other end. He hands it to me. Hold it up in one hand and flick your thumb across it. Go on, don't be afraid, it's harmless. I do as he says. As I nervously follow his instructions, I see the tip of the thing to begin to glow. A bright glare comes into existence. It is like the flame of a torch, but it does not flicker and sway in that manner. No, it is something else entirely, not attached to the instrument at all. A wisp of light levitates gently above the wood. My hand trembles at the strange event I am witnessing. I pull back the piece of wood, and the wisp follows the movement like a relentless gnat, keeping itself perched above the tip. What you are holding is a wand that has been enchanted with a torch spell. It is one of the most common enchantments, as well as one of the most useful ones. Alan gestures with his hand in a strange fashion, muttering something under his breath. In an instant, another wisp of light materializes, floating above his hand. A pervader can do this kind of magic innately, but enchanted tools can be used by anyone. That is their value. We both stare at the strange pair of lights and how they dance to the rhythm of our gestures. Excitement courses through me as I play with it. Alan recognizes my enthrallment and begins to laugh softly. I reach with my other hand to touch the tiny floating sun. Does it burn? I try to fondle it, but my fingers don't touch anything. The only thing they detect is pleasant warmth. The wisp passes through my fingers and palm. A moment of awkwardness is felt as I realize it is descending from within the flesh of my hand. Then I move my hand away to let it escape. Alright, flick your thumb over it again. As I do so, the light vanishes into a trail of orange glowing mist that floats and fades away. Alan has extinguished his as well. What do you think? I turn the wand over in my hands and study it. Nothing about it would tell you that it contains such a power. If you ask me, before I would have said it is a fancy little stick. Can I touch it? Alan chuckles and wags a finger. Now, they are not toys. Besides, you wouldn't want to be caught waving one of these around. The Inquisition will find you. I give the wand back to him and he puts it back in the drawer. Different wands have different spells, so be careful you ever handle one of these. Most wands are enchanted to trigger when touched in the manner I explained to you, but some may be designed differently. You don't want to fire off something you don't understand. Why didn't you tell me that you were a pervader? Alan leans back and stares off to the side. It's a precarious thing. First, I wanted to see if I could trust you or rely on you. I wanted you to get to know me. Too many people have heard too many terrible stories about pervaders, and that has made it very difficult. Not to mention that this region is in a gray zone when it comes to magic. Does anyone else know? Nobody in town knows. Most of them just think I'm obsessed with trinkets, which is also true. I don't want anyone to know, so of course I won't say a word. Thank you. Alan sighs. Is all this alright with you? Wasn't sure what to answer. It was a lot to take in. Everything has given me lots of surprises, and Alan isn't even from the region. It's very exciting, but I'm not sure if it's too much excitement. Would working with a pervader put me in danger? Will I become suspicious in the eyes of the Inquisition? And then we have a shipment from the Inquisition, which didn't seem right. You have misgivings, but I promise you there's nothing to worry about. Ramus, I want you to keep working here. If you're thinking about leaving, you must let me convince you to stay. Doubtless you have many questions. Please ask me anything, and I'll answer as best I can. They know, it is true. The Inquisition, their silver and wants, have no love for my kind, neither do I theirs. But I am stuck having to serve them. What do you mean you have to serve them? I thought it was just a shipment. It's their property, not mine. They're sending it to me for inspection. Let me explain. A few years ago, I arrived in this town. The Inquisition imposes a law that says all pervaders within that domain must register with the local watch authority. The idea is to keep us in check and monitor our presence and movement. If you travel to a different kingdom or country, you must check in with the authority there to make yourself known. They also prohibit the use of magic without license. Most pervaders don't respect these laws of theirs, and neither did I. We tend to keep our business behind closed doors or away from populated areas. I was caught and arrested after working in this shop for a few months without their knowledge. They would have charged me with a crime for not alerting them. Instead, I was offered a deal. They would look the other way and not bother me, but I would have to work for them. Pervaders like me are used to inspect contraband for enchantments. The watch itself doesn't have the ability to do it effectively. Is that why they're coming now? They want you to check for enchantments? Yes. A couple of decades ago, the Inquisition put in place an embargo on enchanted goods across the domain. That is to say, Pervader, your country of Ordany, and Chismark. Some of the southern fiefs of Orthane are also part of the domain, this region included, although the exact jurisdiction is a mess and unclear. Northern Enclave Silts used to make a lot of enchantments back then. They've been suffering from the Inquisition's restrictions. Now there are black markets everywhere. Even though Northern Enclave is no longer trafficking enchanted goods, you can still find many of them across the domain. So when the watch catches something suspicious through customs or raids, they send it to me or someone else like me to check for enchantments. When you think of magic, what do you imagine? I recall some of the stories that were being told by inquisitors in the market square. There were evil tales of robbery, murder, and all kinds of terrors, although the crimes were many. Throughout all those stories, I recognized one common theme. Fine, and Alan slowly nodded. Magic is more abstract than what the inquisitors preach, but at the root of it there is that element. When you touch the wisp of light, What did you feel? It was warm. Yes, and what is warmth? Warmth is energy. Energy is movement. That which is warm moves, that which is cold stays. Flames flicker and give us the warmth we need to survive through winter. However, you should not think of pervaders as weird as a flame. Yes, some of us are as simple as that. Those are the ones we call firebrands. But each pervader has inherent affinities for different forms of magic. For example, my affinity defines me as something we colloquially refer to as a rebel. He moved his hands and lips yet again to conjure a spell. This time he materialized a floating block between us and about the size of a book. It stood vertically. It was pure black. No light came from it or reflected off it. It almost looked like a hole into a dark room rather than an object. One of my powers is that of rejection. Touch it, if you will. My hand approached and touched the surface. It felt remarkably even and slippery, neither cool nor warm, although there was warmth around it. I tried pushing it into it, but it would not budge. I tried wrapping my hands around it to pull it or nudge it in any way without success. Neither light nor sound nor any kind of force could pass through it. How? What is this thing? What you are holding now is pure manifested rejection. Try as you might, you will never be able to move this object even if you had 100 men to help you. Through magic, a pervader can bring into existence many things, even things that seem abstract or immaterial. As I was struggling in vain to test the truth of his words, the thing vanished and nearly made me stumble to the ground. Alan had removed the block. As I gained my composure, I looked back at Alan. Feeling a bit silly, he gave a slight smile. That strange thing taunted me to play with it some more. Is that useful? It can be. Anyway, now is not the time to learn about magic. I can tell you more about it later if you are still interested. Oh, you want to learn magic now? I'm just asking if it's possible. Well, unfortunately, no. Not unless you are a pervader yourself. It's probably a good thing that you're not. Anyone who does not have to worry about the acquisition should count themselves blessed. But what does it mean to be a pervader? It's an innate thing. Nobody knows they are a pervader until they awaken to their true power. Truthfully, you or anyone else could be a pervader that simply hasn't awakened yet. How old are you? 24. If you were a pervader, it would be a very late awakening. No, I don't think you are one. Very few people turn out to be pervaders, about 1 in 10,000, I believe. Count yourself among the lucky many. Am I really? I think most people would like to be able to use magic. Most people wouldn't know what they were getting into. Let me explain. There are two types of enchantments. One of them is the type we create today through our current understanding of magic, like that one I showed you. Simple, practical, easy to use. There's a market for crafting these items, but the market is saturated, and yes, you need to know magic. As far as identifying them goes, it is something any pervader can sense easily. Without that sense, you won't be able to do much. The other type of enchantment is a completely different beast. Old era enchantments, the power they contain is so arcane that it's impossible to create that kind of magic today. We cannot even understand it. So many enchanting techniques have been lost to time. If I were to hold an old era wand in my hand, it would barely be able to sense the shape of its power, much less tell you its use. Researching ancient enchantments is more contextual, more like a puzzle. It's a marvelous thing to study in quite traditional in its approach, knowing magic is of little help. You may very well surpass me in that department one day. Are those old enchantments better? They're beyond better. They're masterful. Those things do amazing things, things that are so famous. There are wands which can save mountains or bring the dead back to life. Wow. Indeed. But they are tricky. Most of these wands have things like traps. I could spend the entire day talking about them, but we have more important things to do. Suffice to say, up north there are many groups which search for and investigate these things. If you're good and can solve their puzzles, you'll be able to earn a lot of coin. Alan chuckles and slaps the desk, amused by my question. Sure, why not? The other matters I spoke about seem more important, but I guess that just shows my ignorance. I should not expect my worries to be yours. Well, I just wanted to make sure. Weighing all the options, I understand that demands respect. Our thing makes us all coin conscious. You need not worry about money. There's plenty to make in the future. If you want to work out your pay, we can do that later after this silver and watch business is over and done with. I like you and want to stay here, but don't abuse an old man's sympathy, Weymouth. Let's come to a fair agreement. So, have you decided? Yes, of course I'm going to stay, Alan. He breathes a sigh of relief and brings his hands together. Thank you. You could have told me earlier. I would have heard you out. With the benefit of foresight, we would all choose better paths. The Inquisition's preaching has made it difficult to find people I could trust. I had to take my time figuring you out. That upset me and made me frown. I wish you didn't have to hide this from me. But I'm happy to have cleared the air so I can put this behind me now. He smiles at each other. What a strange turn of events. Alan had appeared throughout all this like someone who wanted my approval. In a world that made sense, it would be the other way around. Now, we should get back to business. Those watchmen will arrive later today. We need to get ready. Come on here and have a look at this. I complied, moving next to him behind the main desk. So that was the first video of Pervader. So we know that Pervaders are people who have magical capabilities, and Alan revealed to Ramus that he is one, and that he lives in an area where his kind are discriminated against. There are this organization called the Inquisition or the Watts, and they go around their domain making sure that pervaders don't use magic because they consider magic to be bad. So, and plus I think there was something about what some pervaders did in the past that really turned people against them. So Alan didn't want to tell Ramus that he was a pervader because he was worried what his reaction would be. And I understand why he was so hesitant to tell Ramus who he was. And I think it wasn't until after he got to know Ramus and got comfortable around him that he decided to tell him who he really was. I mean, if you tell somebody you don't know that you're a pervader, that's really not a good idea, because they can just go ahead and tell the authorities who you are. I mean, you think this person may not be bad, but turn out they actually are. So Raymond's was kind of sad that he didn't trust him at first, but I understand why Alan decided to tell him immediately about him being a pervader. Okay, so in the next episode, the Inquisition will show up at the store, and Alan's job will be to inspect something that they have. I think they have something, and Alan's job is to inspect it and make sure that it's not capable of being used for magical purposes by pervaders or anybody else. So I think that's like the gist of it. Like what it's about. Like, you know, Alan trying to inspect different items and make sure they don't go against what the Inquisition wants. You know, they don't like magic, so they're gonna have to make sure that these items they have aren't capable of magic or capable of being used by pervaders. So that's what Alan's job is for, to inspect them. And that was a condition Alan had in exchange for staying in this town, this port town. As long as he inspects these items for the Inquisition, they'll leave him alone. So otherwise they will put him in jail. Well, he already been put in jail before, but by doing this, you know, inspecting items, he gets to stay out of jail. So we'll continue with Pervader next time. Thank y'all very much for watching. Goodbye.